Second.
Seconded by Councilor Yazbat. Any discussion? Let the record reflect that no votes were taken and the minutes are sealed. Roll call vote, please.
Sells? Yes. Mr. Yazbat?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes. Motion carries. Moving on to old business. First item is discussion by council vote or other action on Nicholson and Associates review of 2013 tax roll abatements / tax assessor's office. Who would like to start the discussion on this item?
Mr. President, I haven't heard anything from Mr. Nicholson for a couple of weeks or so, maybe even longer. If you'd like, if the council's wish, I'll be happy to contact him in the next week or two and try to get a report back for the status of his work by the September 15th town council meeting, if that's what the majority would like.
I would agree with that. Anybody disagree? Okay, I don't think we have to take any action, any further action. We can move on to old business. Item B, discussion by council vote or other action on abatements reviewed by tax assessors board of review. And we have in our packets a list of them. Does anybody have any questions about them?
Mr. President, I have clients on the list, so I'm going to recuse myself.
Mr. President, I do have one that needs to be corrected. Upon review today, it's on the second listing.
I can't hear you. Thank you. Not only that, but the audience can't hear as well. Paul, can you turn it off? First, talk and do it from behind. Did you do that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. It's just so much fun.
On the second listing, there's an abatement for an Alberta, I don't know what to say. But the abatement amount is $1,674.85. It should be $708.20. When they wrote out the paper, they picked up the wrong amount. So I don't know if you want to change that on your list. That's the only one I've seen, but when I abate them with Michelle, we go through them again and we'll double check and make sure that the amounts are correct, which we did find a couple the last time that we changed.
So the last time that we discussed this, I seem to recall we had a discussion about only having the council need to view the ones that were above a certain level.
I don't think it voted on anything though. So Michelle made copies of everything for
Okay.
now.
Do we want to take a vote this time so that we can avoid the excessive paper for some abatements which are, very small amounts?
I think they've done with the motor vehicles, I believe. Now they might have a few stragglers. But
And I know that you said that you
the
wanted to
date
do
was
it this way to start so that we had an appreciation for the process. I would entertain a motion at this time that for future reporting on the abatements that we receive a listing for those that are in excess of $1,500 or more. $1,500 or more. Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that for discussion. Yeah. I'm truly appreciative that we know the name and the account number and the parcel and all that. I just would not want to vary from that format. We know who it is and what company, what individual it is. I just like to see those things.
You're still going to get this.
Yeah, I said, as long as we don't leave that format, I'm very comfortable with the 15.
So the only ones that will be removed are those that are below $1,500.
No, you'll have everybody on here.
Okay.
You just won't have the paperwork. You'll only have the
Wow,
paperwork of
okay, I get it,
$1,500
okay.
or more.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification.
So you get a motion in a second.
Yeah, motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Sells? Yes. Mr. Swansky?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries. Now, I would entertain a motion to accept the report as presented by the finance director. And amended.
Motion for discussion.
Second.
Motion to accept it for discussion.
Motion by Councilor Zawinski, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Alves, discussion.
Paulette or Brenda or probably both. I'm looking at this one of the reasons for abatement is double billed. One of them is doing business as, one particular company, Get Wireless Now. There were three of them, double billed doing business as? DBA, can you explain that to me? Double billed to, what is DBA?
Doing business as?
That's what I thought, but, so in essence, this tangible was double billed to Get Wireless Now?
It looks, according to their abatement reason, it says duplicate accounts. So they must have had one, and then, I believe it was Get Wireless Now,
Yes.
and then the DBA also had an account. So you can't have two
Sure.
copy of
Double
it, so that's how it was
Okay.
billed.
The other one is on the second page, and it's Route 146 real estate, double billed in Arrow. That seems to be the only one that was double billed in Arrow. So, in essence, I'm going to ask you like you did the last time, could you just double check those four? Get Wireless Now, there were three of them. It is 030735-99. There's three of them for $218.53, $829.35, and $830.42. The other one that, just for a double check, is Route 146 Realty. The account number is 18-0580-05. Parcel number or registration number is 017041. Double billed in error in the amount of $2,891.18. So Brenda, the last time, if you recall, I just asked you to double check and say, yeah, I did, everything's okay.
And we sent you an email.
Yeah, you did.
So,
You did, so that would
is
be
it
helpful.
want it the same way?
Please, just an email telling me that, and list those by their
Yes.
account numbers, would you? Thanks.
I will.
So we have a motion, it's been seconded, we've had discussion. The motion, as a reminder, is to accept the report as presented and amended by the town finance director. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries. Which brings us to old business item C, discussion by council, vote, or other action on potential new zoning ordinances and ongoing violations. This is listed for Mr. Zelinski.
Yes, Mr. President, I attended the planning board meeting, the last one, in which Mr. Erickson kind of led the planning board members through that. You'll see in your packet, he also has a letter. Mr. Erickson, you're here, right?
What?
You're here, correct?
Yes.
So in your update to the planning board, the town council, your memo dated August 28, 2014. Would you mind bringing the council, just rehashing what's written down here, accessory buildings, what you wrote?
Yeah, and our existing ordinance allows the accessory buildings to cover up to 25% of the side or rear yard, but it does not, within 10 feet of the lot line, but it does not prohibit from the front yard. So after reviewing it, the planning board came to the conclusion that I didn't expect, and that is that there's no need to make a change, and that they would like to see neighbors work things out. In other words, before you go in for a building permit, talk to your neighbors, see if they have any problems with it. That's what I do, and that's what a lot of people do. And if it doesn't work out, find some external party to mediate it for you. But that was it. I was surprised that they came to that conclusion. I understand why now, given the makeup of the board. But I have no problem researching that further if you want to, except that I would note that in Lincoln, where I live, two of the most beautiful properties in town are historic, and they have outbuildings in the front yard. And it's hard to get away from it, particularly an old farm that has a well house or something like that. But this one happens to be a small barn in the front yard, and a well house in the front yard.
Questions for Mr. Erickson?
Yeah, I do. So, using your example in Lincoln, Mr. Erickson, so the historical, they're pre-existing, pre-zoning ordinances, so that's not something.
Well, I just want to make one comment, that on my street, we have 4 18th century, mid-18th century, 5-bay symmetrical farmhouses. And other people have done reproductions, so there's at least 4 reproductions. And I don't know why you would want to preclude a reproduction from matching the original.
No, if we had a zone that was specific, saying if you wanted to do a period reproduction piece that was
Yeah.
consistent with the land uses in that area,
Yeah.
okay? But what brings me, when I look at this, our zoning does not have any, does not address accessory uses on the front yard.
Yep.
So when you were looking at this zone earlier, about size of accessory uses, are there other communities that prohibit sheds being put in the front? Like right now, I guess what I'm hearing, I could go buy a shed or construct a shed in my front yard as long as it's 10 feet away
Right.
from property line.
The answer is, a few towns do, most towns don't. The answer to the question of why don't people do that is because it devalues their own property. Why would you do it? I mean, we saw an example of a situation that's probably going to value the property, but most people are smart enough to realize that it's not worth doing because A, your neighbors don't like it, and B, it's going to devalue your property.
Other questions for Mr. Erickson?
I want to pursue this. So, yeah, most people wouldn't do it, but we've seen grudge matches where people have spray painted their trees pink and put flamingos all over their yards. Not in North Smithfield, because we're way too civil to do that.
We could do a prohibition of flamingos.
You know, it's kind of like a fun thing to tell on a flamingo pops up, and you don't want to get that. I'm just concerned that we don't have, me personally,
Yeah.
that we don't have some type of zoning ordinance for accessory uses on someone's front lawn. Because not everybody is rational, level-headed, and will say that, yeah, it's going to diminish the property, about the value of my property. And sometimes people are grudgeful. Anyway.
Well, I can find one. I know what socket has one.
Do they?
Yeah, but that's a much tighter, much tighter properties. But I'll be glad to, bring a couple in and decide what you like.
I like the Lincoln thing. If you're going to do it, historic piece, or it's consistent with, that's not bad. I kind of like that, but hey, who am I? Thank you, Mr. Flattery.
Any other questions for Mr. Erickson? I had one. I'm just curious, Bob, with the research. I know you said you could only find, there's only one, it was in Richmond, Virginia, that had an area limitation. And I was just curious, is that like an APA search, American Planning Association? I mean, how do you find that across the country? I'm just
Same
curious.
way I found the Slatersville Bridge. Google.
Okay.
Yeah. No, there's no way you can do it thoroughly. We could spend $600 a year to have the APA do that kind of research for us, but it's not really.
So the recommendation from the planning board was to not take any further action on adding another component.
Right. That was a recommendation.
Right.
You can still do that.
And so, and the way we're going to leave this is that you are going to bring back some
Yep.
examples for
Yep.
councilors.
This is an ongoing
Right. Okay.
need to meet.
So there's no reason for any vote on this item, I don't believe. Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to new business, which is item 5A. Discussion by council vote or other action on request for outdoor sound system permit. This is listed for the Knights of Columbus. Mr. Vadney, would you like to speak on this? Tell us a little something about the event. We have the information in our packets.
Good evening. I'm here representing Field Council Knights of Columbus. We are planning to have a car show at the high school, middle school complex on October 5th from 10 to 2. And we've had a band come forward and say that they would play for us. We'd like them to. I'm here requesting a sound system. The purpose of this car show is to benefit our scholarship fund, which we've reinstituted after about almost a 30-year gap in awarding a scholarship. We awarded one last year, and we hope to continue to do that for years to come now. That's the purpose of it.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Yazbek. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Zawinski. Is there any discussion? We need to take a roll call. No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Thank you.
Next item on the new business, B, discussion by council vote or other action on first reading of salary and wage ordinance. And for this, I will turn it to Madam Administrator.
Well, we just have the ordinance in front of you that was, needs to have 2 readings. We had to post it for, I believe it was 10 days and 14 days prior to. So you're just getting the annual wage ordinance so that it can be read into the record and approved at the next meeting.
Does anybody have any questions for the Administrator?
I do, Mr. President.
Mr. Yazbek?
The local 937 portion of the contract, has that been updated for the proposed contract that hasn't been ratified yet, or is that just updated for what's in existence now? Okay. So just a word of advice, unless we want to do this every meeting until November, maybe the second reading should occur after there's a vote taken on the contract, which I think is scheduled for the next meeting. Then you could update it. Theoretically, if that passes, I don't know that it will, but it may save you from having to do an amended wage ordinance in October or November. Just a thought.
Is there a motion to consider this, I'm sorry, this is the first reading, correct? Is there a motion to consider this the first reading of the proposed wage ordinance?
So moved.
Moved by Council Yazbek, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Council Zawinski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. Which brings us to new business item C. Discussion by council vote or other action on first reading of ordinance for stabilization of taxes for solar and wind powered systems. And for this, I'll turn to Administrator Campbell.
Actually, I'm the person bringing it to you for consideration, and Mr. Erickson and I, working on this, given that we have a number of companies coming forward for solar power, and trying to make it as appealing for them to continue to come to town while having, I think they have it in the packets, right? So I'll turn it over to Mr. Erickson and give a little background as to how we got here and what we're looking for in the next several meetings.
Okay, the one that you have that has yellow on it is not the one that I did in the initial package. What I needed to do, or what I wanted to do, was replicate the Massachusetts state law as a local ordinance. However, I forgot to put on the header, which is pursuant to section 44-3-21 of the Rhode Island General Laws, as amended, the following property shall be exempt from taxation. And then Jim found an easier way to write the Massachusetts law, because the Massachusetts law was just one clause out of literally scores of exemptions. And taken together, that's probably the most efficient way to pass it. But I want you to be aware of the Massachusetts law, because that's our competition. They have an enormous advantage over us in the number of solar units installed, because they have had this exemption in place. And they have also focused many of their grants on solar panels. And they've been ahead of us for at least 5 years now. So we have a couple of things coming online. National Marker has received a grant to cover their roof with solar. We have U-Haul that I discussed as a potential site for solar. The new Anchor Subaru building is another potential site. But because these are capital intensive instead of fuel intensive, the tax becomes a burden. And although you can probably take the 2 existing Nexsun and the one that's down on the horse farm that are planned, and have them get a 3% rate of return, paying half the normal tax. The competition is in Massachusetts where the investment is significantly, return on investment is significantly greater. So the issue for us is really competitiveness. There's a reason why Rhode Island followed Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont in the solarized projects because we just don't have, we don't offer the economic incentives.
So can I be clear that, that what this is proposing would not, for example, affect a project that we considered earlier, the wind turbine, because that's generating power back into the earth, or even next sun? My understanding is that this is for solar that's providing power to the property on which it's located, primarily. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, it's being utilized as primary or auxiliary power system for the purpose of heating and otherwise supplying energy needs. If you provide anything, you qualify. And that's the way Massachusetts does it. So if you have a distributed generation contract and you're supplying it to anybody nearby, then you're in. And I think the reality is that we're not going to get these projects unless we have a significant discount. Even if we did, even if we gave 50% off, we wouldn't get any new ones. I mean, Nexon, I thought was, they didn't do their due diligence because they didn't know what they were going to get when they committed here. They went through about $50,000 worth of work without insurance that they were going to get any kind of discount. I don't think the one on the horse farm is going to, they've got their distributed generation contract, but I don't think they're going to do anything unless they get something significant.
Well, I just wanted to be clear because one of the differences between the text in the original that was sent out in the packet and it got emailed to us, the one in the packet refers to supplying the energy needs of property taxable under this chapter, and that wasn't included in the revised language where it talks about utilizes a primary or auxiliary power system for the purposes of heating or otherwise supplying the energy needs. I would have thought it says at the property at which it's located, but you're saying no.
No.
Okay.
I mean, you wouldn't have projects in Massachusetts with that.
Right.
Stuff.
So,
A
I
lot
guess
of-
so my question would be, if we had a long debate not that many months ago
Yes,
about the wind project,
yes.
and the proposal came before the council to exempt the tangibles. And we had a long debate about that,
Right.
and about the fairness issues and so forth. And I see a project that's generated, whose sole purpose is to generate electricity, not to power the property in question, but to sell it as a different thing than if a local company wants to put a solar array on their roof for their own power needs. So is there not a distinction?
Let me say, if you want to take out wind, it's not going to amount to anything, really. The competitiveness with Massachusetts is super solar. So let's, if you want to take out wind, take it out. But in the photovoltaic, you've got to have an incentive to get people to do it on their private residences or do it on somebody else's property.
Agreed. Yeah. I'm not disputing it. I'm just trying to understand what this applies to.
Yeah, I don't think wind really has a place this far north from the state. Certainly nothing compared to photovoltaic.
Questions?
I have a couple. So what got posted as a public notice of the ordinance?
Well, that's in your packet.
When it was in packet, so that's different than what we have proposed tonight. And so maybe this isn't the first reading, but maybe it is for agenda purposes. The second thing is I have to agree with the council president. I think if it's something that is generating on your own property, fine. But if you're selling it back out to the grid, then how can we possibly treat taxpayers differently just because one may have solar and one has oil or gas generation? So National Grid is one of our largest taxpayers in town, if not the largest. And we're grateful for that business. It's paid for a lot of things in the last few years, and it's gonna pay for a lot of things in the next few. So I think if somebody wants to put it up, if National Market wants to put it up on their roof and they're generating their own electricity, go with the grace of God. To me, I can see us doing something that encourages solar. That's the benefit or the good of the community, the good of the country, however far you want to take the argument. But the fact that somebody's going to come in, brand new to the town, is going to set up a big farm and then just sell it to National Grid, personally, I'm not interested in giving them a tax break. I don't think it's fair to the businesses that are already in. That's just my personal opinion.
Comment? If that's your choice and you'd like to do that, that's fine. I understand the logic. As a matter of fact, that will make it more likely that you will see projects used for internal purposes like National Market or net metering like National Market. So that will give an advantage because the distributed generation contracts are coming down and down and down to the point where it's almost even to use it for yourself and net metering or to sell it to the distributed grid. So, you know, if that's your policy choice, I have no problem with that.
It actually could be a very easy fix. All it would need at the end of the words heating and otherwise supplying the energy needs of the property at which it's located for a period of 20 years. I mean, it's a simple, I'm not trying
Well, I
to...
think you're going to need something for proration, because if somebody is generating excess and they want to sell it on the grid, they have every right to do that. But if they're selling, on average, 25% out to the grid and they're consuming 75, then the exemption should be 75. I don't know how.
You never track that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how we do that, but we got to figure out.
Massachusetts doesn't even bother with that. You know, the bottom line is, we're competing with Massachusetts. Massachusetts has a much better employment rate than we do. We're right on the border. Any investment you want to make, you just walk right over the line. And that's essentially what's happening.
The only other choice would be to put some language in for de minimis sell back to the grid. So as long as you're not selling back more than 20% to the grid of excess electricity generated, then you're all set. 80% is used internally.
The problem there is that if you are, you know, if you're right at the boundary, how are you going to know that?
Well, you're not going to know that other than, I guess we could ask National Grid for a list of everybody who supplied them with power. They know. They know by computer, I'm sure. They're paying them, they know. Trust me, they know.
Oh, I know they know.
National Grid knows when they buy a waste paper basket because it's built into their rates, so trust me, they know.
Well, they also know where their street poles are, but they deny that they know it. You know, we're the only town in the state that ever got the GIS layer for street light pole, I mean for telephone poles. They still deny it for the rest of the state.
So can I make a suggestion with some advice from the solicitor? Can we consider this still a first reading, even though what we've received is tonight is not exactly the same as what was in our packet?
Well, you consider what you have in the package
As the first reading.
Right.
And you made
And
amendments.
amend it on the second.
You were considering amendments to it,
Okay.
or recommendations for amendments.
Okay.
And you don't have to take a formal vote. I mean, I get the gist of it.
Yeah. So, so I'd be comfortable with considering this a first reading from what we had in the packet. We've had some discussion. We know some of the amendments that are likely to come back. We've heard testimony from the council. So unless there's any further questions, is there a motion to consider this the first reading? I'll motion to consider it the first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Zelinski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Gasper?
No.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. Motion carries. So we'll look forward to getting any updates. Thank you.
John, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
We're signing this, and we have to do ATP.
That was from, we've already approved those last time, but they hadn't put in the proper form.
Yeah. It's not on the agenda, is it?
It's not.
Well, I'm not going to sign it.
It was already approved, that I had to.
Yeah, but the wording on it, I had some question about the wording on it, so can we talk about this? It's the
I don't think we can because it is.
resolutions of the town of North Smithfield supporting the goals of
Could I make a recommendation, since it's not on the agenda, that we have this discussion at the conclusion of the meeting? And then you can discuss with the
Put it on
solicitor.
the agenda.
Yeah,
Okay.
make a motion, put it on the agenda. Thanks.
Motion by Councilor Zelinski to add the item of the resolution regarding
Redevelopment Agency, North Smithfield Redevelopment Agency, to continue pursuing all reasonable options for stimulating the project redevelopment of the former ATP manufacturing facility.
that's the motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Yazbek.
That's not on the agenda at all. So how you,
We got a unanimous consent, you can add it to the agenda, but you can't vote on it, but you can discuss it.
So, you want to
you're taking a vote right now on something that's not on the agenda.
Well, just taking the vote to put it on the agenda.
At the end of the meeting.
the discussion.
For discussion.
Yeah. Okay. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, so we'll take that up as our final item. The next item on new business is D, discussion by council vote or other action on award of bid for 2 police vehicles. And I'll turn to the finance director for this.
Okay, we had the police department look into the bid for the 2 Ford Focuses for the undercover police cars. We did check everything back on Massachusetts State RFP, which we attached. When we got the price for that, we didn't have enough in the detail account to cover it, so we called the company and he reduced one of the cars by $500, which brought us under the amount that we had in the account. So we're asking to approve for $38,480.25. And we do have $38,797 in the account now.
What's the total you're looking for? What's the total you're looking for?
38, 48, 25, and I do have to grab the
Okay.
number at the end, so.
I'll make a motion to approve 38,480.25 based upon the recommendation of the finance director and the town administrator to be paid out of the detail account.
Motion by Councilor Yazbek, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Zelinski, discussion. Brenda, could you identify what the typo was at the end?
Oh. Yes,
Oh,
the very
slash.
last number, I put 38,797, and it should have been the.
A comma instead of a slash.
No,
Okay.
it should
Slash
have
instead
been
of-
38,480.25.
Oh, okay.
I picked up the wrong amount.
Okay.
Oh, that does need to come too.
Comma and.
And the comma,
change
yeah.
it to 480.25. Okay.
No,
Thank you very
Sunday
much.
You're
food.
welcome.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. Do we want to take up Councilor Zelinski's item now before we move to executive session? Because that would be our last.
President's preference.
Okay. Why don't we go into it? So the resolution that Councilor Zelinski was referring to had to do with, was one that we approved at our last meeting regarding the redevelopment of the ATP site. And my understanding is that it was approved, but that it was necessary to put it into proper form. And so the way we left it was it would be put into proper form, and the clerk would bring it to us this week for us to fix our signatures, even though we weren't planning to address it.
Actually, Mr. Yazbek did ask on that one that the NSRA be added to the top because NSRA is.
For consistency? Right.
So we spelled out what NSRA meant before we said it.
And we referred to it as NSRA because that's how we did it throughout the body of the and that constitutes putting it in proper form.
That's all I
It
did.
didn't change the substance of
I
it.
didn't do anything
Right.
else.
So, it's where we are tonight.
I'll start with a preface, Mr. President. Certainly, I want to support this, but if I can recall our dialogue, we were talking about Director Garrett and the good work that he does with the Neighborhood Works Blackstone River Valley. My concern, I believe, during that meeting was I broached the subject of certainly did not want to see this commercial building being regentrified into housing. When I read this, it's possible, I know it's possible, we have all our mills being regentrified into condos and apartments. It just says that Director Garrick expressed interest in collaborating with North Smithfield Redevelopment Agency to control, investigate, and possibly acquire the AT property for subsequent redevelopment. It doesn't state what redevelopment. Do you recall that conversation? I expressed my concern, and certainly if we were going to do this, it'd be for manufacturing or some business use. So this is kind of vague. To me, it's vague.
Mr. President, we did discuss at that time, maybe it's not fully, you're not comfortable with that language, but it was to have incubator space, office space in that building. In fact, there is still some movement. We're actually meeting tomorrow on this again, so.
That's all. Yeah, I support all that.
Yeah, I know you.
But it's just vague. I mean, suppose all of a sudden that maybe we want to come in with some more apartment buildings.
I think you have to come back to us.
I think that both you and Councilor Yazbek raised the same concern about that. And I think that Mr. Gibbs had indicated that that regardless of what comes back, all has to come back before the council.
The last therefore be resolved.
Right.
Yeah, but I just want to go kind of like record.
I'm not arguing with you. I guess from a procedural standpoint, we had a resolution, it was acted upon, and the only thing that had to happen to it was for it to be put in proper form, and we were going to affix our signature. So I think that if any changes are made to that, we're going to have a reconsideration vote.
Well, I would like to make a motion that changes, well, we can't, we have to come back with it, right?
Well, you have to actually, you could take a reconsideration, well, you can't vote tonight.
No, let's put it on the agenda.
But to do a reconsideration, it has to be done at the very next meeting, which would have been for tonight.
Oh,
Right. You could also reintroduce it and amend it in the future.
Right.
So right now, that's the ordinance that's passed. You could reintroduce it at the next meeting and then amend it.
It's a resolution. It's a resolution that has.
Right. So I guess what I would recommend is that we sign it, because that's what we acted on at the last meeting, and then I would recommend following the solicitor's advice to reintroduce an amended version.
Can we do that for the next meeting?
Okay.
Put that on the agenda?
We can.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And just to be a little more clear, without boxing them out, potential business incubator space, businesses, commercial uses, but not to include residents.
What I was going to ask is if you wouldn't mind submitting your suggested.
We're getting into it, okay.
Yeah.
You get into a discussion about what you're going to do at the next meeting.
Okay.
But would it be okay for me to suggest that Councilor Zelinski forward his recommended amendments to the clerk for the next meeting?
Yes.
We're not discussing substance, but just process.
Yes.
But we should still be signing that tonight because that's
I agree.
Okay. Any other questions? We don't have to take any votes. We can't vote actually. Okay, everybody comfortable? Okay. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. We have two items listed. One is Town of North Smithfield versus Desper in municipal court, and the second item is pending pension litigation. Say that 3 times fast. Is there a motion to retreat to that? Moved by Councilor Yazbek. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Alves. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Clary?
Yes.